The draft is over, and the Bears have 11 new players. What a day. That escalated very, very quickly. We thought we'd be having 3 players to talk to you about. We have a total of 8 today and 11 for the whole draft. What's up? Welcome in to the CHGO Draft Day Live, our third show in 3 days, our last Draft Day Live. It has been a marathon. Great work by everybody. We are presented by PointsBet. Use that code CHGO to get your free bets up to $2,000 and live your bet life. We've all been living our best lives the last 3 days, our draft lives. And everybody give themselves a round of applause. A lot of hard work. Nick's been at Hallis. Will had to drive 5 hours last night in the middle of the night. Lawrence has, wait till you see all the special stuff Lawrence has for us going today for this show. So what's up, guys? How's everyone doing?
I'm doing good. If I would have known the Bears would have traded back 100 times to start off this morning, I would have just stayed in Chicago overnight and made the drive this morning. Like, I just wish I would have known that ahead of time.
Yeah, Adam, it was funny.
Polls.
Definitely did. When we got into like the media workroom, and the draft hadn't even started yet, technically, and the Bears made two trades. It's like, what's going on? Like, we already knew that we were in for a long day because we're like, oh, there's only 3 picks today. We'll be out of here maybe relatively soon. Hell no. Ryan Poles and the Bears are like, that's not happening. We are going to, we're gonna get as many picks as possible, and they did that.
And I'm okay with it. Like, again, like I was complaining about the drive overnight, which I really was, and just kind of making a joke there, but I understand it. Like, this team needs a lot of bottom end talent. And we talked about that on the show throughout the last few weeks of how like small really the roster is, and they need to kind of fill it. And the fact that they're filling it with, young guys at these positions. I mean, offensive line was addressed 4 times today here. So I'm excited about this. I'm calling it a youth infusion to this Bears roster that it wasn't that long ago. It was like one of the oldest in the NFL. It's much needed.
Well, by the way, you're allowed to complain about having to drive that far in the middle of the night. On what is already a crazy weekend that there's not a lot of sleep to begin with. So that's okay. Well, we're here with you. We have 11 picks. Basically, this show is going to be very simple. We're going to go through the entire draft class and tell you what we know about all these guys, how we feel about it. And then we will be back Monday with Olin Kreutz in studio to talk about some of the undrafted guys that have been signed, and also get his thoughts on all of the offensive linemen from today as well, because there were quite a few. So let's do this thing. Let's start. You see it if you're watching on YouTube, the entire draft class, 11 players drafted. I just looked this up. This is the most players the Bears have drafted in 1 year since 2008, when they drafted 12 players. Jerry Angelo took 12 players that year. That was a draft that included Chris Williams, Matt Forte, yes, and Earl Bennett was in that draft. Craig Stelz was in that draft. Kellen Davis was in that draft. Zach Bowman was in that draft. And then we just won't mention any of these 7th rounders. There were 5 7th rounders in that draft class. You remember a Marcus Monk?
I was going to say Marcus Monk.
Yeah.
I don't.
That was that year. That was 3 GMs ago, guys. So Ryan Poles jumping on the draft train, trading back a bunch today just to get guys in the building. And there are some intriguing ones. But we're going to go back to last night, first of all, and talk about the first pick made at number 39. And that was Kyler Gordon, the cornerback out of Washington, 5'11", just shy of 6 feet, if we're being honest, 194 pounds. And you just hear Matt Eberflus talk about him after the draft today. Nick, you were there. Give us what your first impression was hearing from the head coach today. We heard what Ryan Poles had to say yesterday. What did the head coach have to say about Kyler Gordon tonight?
Yeah, so with what Eberflus said about Gordon, with Brisker, just guys that are around the football, playmakers. And it was funny. Ryan Poles was saying, obviously our head coach is a defensive minded guy. So anytime you can get those kind of guys, he's going to be happy about it. said he'd be happy with offensive players too, but those are guys that they relatively see as coming in, competing, and ultimately winning starting jobs. So obviously, anytime you can add players like that, you're going to increase the level of the back end of your defense. And Poles said it in yesterday's presser, like he didn't expect either one of those guys to be available when they picked them. So when they were there, again, stuck to the board, best player available, were able to immediately upgrade that secondary.
And like, at least here, and I mean, we talked about it last night. I mean, Nick, again, congratulations on, the night before and tweeting it out and talking to us on the show about that being a guy that you would want to take there with the 39th pick. But
and making Will take a shot on Malort because of
it. That's
that was awesome.
Something we'll talk about. Now, see, I'm already choking up, man.
Yeah, when he said he's just thinking about the Malort and is choking him up. When he said congratulations, he really meant damn you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I saw that on the social. That was great. You guys did a great job with that. I was laughing, but it was awesome.
No, I still got that taste in my mouth of the like rubber bandy kind of just grossness that comes with it. But no, like Kyler Gordon, guys, like, ball production, athlete, big hitter, and then like the character guy behind it. Like he checks all the boxes that the Bears have been looking for to add to this team, add to this secondary. And he's someone that I'm excited to have here in Chicago, watch him develop. He should be an instant plug and play, immediately upgrade this defense. And obviously that makes things a little bit harder for opposing quarterbacks when they don't just have to pick on one side of the field. Like they're going to have to think about it here. And he's someone that can read, react, and make plays on the football in the air with that athleticism, make some really good adjustments. The more film I watched him today pre-draft, my limited sleep, it made me feel, really good about it, even more so than yesterday.
Yeah, I actually have some of his tape up right now. It's what I'm looking at. And it's just like every play. Granted, it's a highlight reel what I'm watching right now, but every single play, it's like he's getting his hands on the football, whether that's in the air. The one interception he had where he tiptoes along the sidelines is like he looks like a wide receiver, and it's an NFL wide receiver because he gets both feet down, which I happen to notice. Then he's knocking the ball loose. Just with a forced fumble, he's getting in the backfield with a tackle for loss, flying into the backfield. So I can certainly see why the Bears targeted Kyler Gordon with that pick. And we're happy that he was available. I know everybody was looking for them to trade back last night, but when somebody like that falls back, I understand why they stuck with it, because he really does seem like to be like a perfect fit for this defense.
He does, because like he fits that zone so well because he's so twitchy. Like he can read, react, and like how he can break on a receiver or break on a ball like in his area, in that area of the field in a hurry. It's going to just suit him so well in this cover too, where he can watch the quarterback's eyes, see where he's going with it, and just go, see ball, get ball. And I'm excited to see when you guys get some reports from, OTAs, whatever you're allowed to tell us, versus, the progression we see in training camp, preseason, come week one. Like I expect this guy to be the real deal.
Yeah, we'll have rookie mini camp next weekend. So we'll get to see these guys in person very quickly. And let's move on to the second pick, since we do have a lot to get through. We've covered drafts where there's been 5 selections total. So this is a busy draft. Jaquan Brisker being that second pick, taken at number 48. Look, every GM is going to be always say, we got our guy. This is who we targeted. This is who we wanted all along. But it seems genuine when these guys say that they were ecstatic that Jaquan Brisker fell to number 48, and they did not expect him to be there at that spot. Little over 6'1", 206 pounds out of Penn State. Second team All-American, first team All Big Ten, team captain, a guy that I really feel like will be a culture fit. And Eberflus tonight, talking about both Gordon and Brisker, called them big, long players who bring playmaking ability. He mentioned the word takeaways. They play the ball. So when you think about guys in this defense, specifically in the secondary, that they're going to try to target, that's why they've gone after Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. What was your reaction, Nick, just being at House Hall, hearing what they had to say about Brisker tonight?
No, I want to say that I think I've opened up a little bit more to the Brisker pick, because initially when I saw it happen, it's like, okay, the Bears address their secondary, but where's the offensive? And obviously they get Velus Jones a pick later. But like you said, Adam, he is somebody that I think is a good culture fit, but is going to be an enforcer on that back end. And, for a guy that had 962 career coverage snaps and only allowed 1 touchdown, hey, that is also a benefit too, for especially all the blown coverages we saw last season for the Bears. The very first game and the very last game, we saw that from the back end, those safeties not touching people down. So you get 2 immediate impact guys, but a guy like Brisker, I think, fits like what Eberflus was saying, someone that's a playmaker is going to help create those turnovers. So, and it ended up being their best player on their board. So you can't fault the Bears in their process of how they landed with Brisker. So I would say from last night to today, definitely opened up more to the pick.
And, I love what he told both Poles and Eberflus on the phone that night. You just got the steal of the draft. Like, I love that confidence. And I think Coach Flus said, use that, bottle that, don't forget this feeling, and let's use that on the field. And I expect that to come in fruition. But again, like another physical kind of player with the ball skills that we're going to need in this defense to kind of change the tone. And this is a position, strong safety, that ever since they let Adrian Amos walk, they've just decided we're just going to try 1-year deals to these veterans. And obviously that has not panned out for a long-term answer at the position. So I do find it ironic, and I tweeted this earlier, that they decided we'll fix it by drafting another Penn State safety, like Adrian Amos 2.0 maybe in a way. So I love this pick. He's someone that, and again, like Adam, you can even speak on it some more too, like another guy that perfectly fits on the field, but also, and equally as important, like culture-wise locker room player that they're going to really appreciate having here at Hallis Hall.
Yeah, I can speak to it. You know what? I had forgotten that he was the one that caught that interception on Graham Mertz in the end zone right at the end of that season opening game at Camp Randall this year. And that, as I have this playlist constantly going on my TV up here of different plays made by the Bears draft picks, that one keeps coming up. So thank you very much for that. But, that play is a perfect example because, first of all, it's crunch time. The Badgers about to go in to score a touchdown, which would win the game with an extra point. And he just makes a very good read on the quarterback with his eyes on a play where Jake Ferguson, who also got drafted today by the Cowboys, beat his man off the line. And Brisker just read the eyes of the quarterback, snuck it in the middle of the field, snatched the ball away to seal a win. It's a huge play. Those are the types of plays that the Bears want to see their secondary make. So I think that that's just good value with both of those picks, quite frankly. 2 guys that got picked in a spot where you're feeling good about the value with the fact that they did not trade it back there. So, by the way, I just want to say thanks to everybody joining us here. It's a late on Saturday. It's not that late. It's like 8:00, but everybody's got good things to do on a Saturday night, and they've probably been with us for the whole weekend. So I'm happy with all the people that are here. I hope everybody has a beverage as they tune in and enjoy the. What do you got there? Don't tell me that's that lemonade.
Only thing that was in the fridge after today, Adam. I didn't care what it was. I'm like, just get me some kind of beverage. I need something because it was a hell of a day.
Fair enough. I'm not a huge fan of that specific. I love Goose Island. I love 312, but the 312 Shandy thing, it's just I got Basil Hayden going here. To end the day. Necessary.
No, after the Malort, I decided I need a day off.
Fair enough.
H2O.
Yeah. Well, it's probably smarter than us. I was, also speaking to our viewers right now and our listeners, as I hope that they're enjoying the Saturday night after the Bears drafted 11 players. So let's go to the next one. Velus Jones Jr., the wide receiver out of Tennessee, who also spent 4 years at USC before transferring to Tennessee. This is the guy who will be 25 years old come week 1. Actually, in about 12 days, he'll be 25 years old. And just shy of under 6 feet, 204 pounds. The Bears drafted a couple of guys who fit the idea of being a returner. That's one area the Bears have definitely strengthened themselves throughout this draft, is in the return game. But you also get the sense, guys, that Velus Jones is going to be somebody that they insert into the offense and get him the football. I think we've talked already a little bit about like a Tariq Cohen type role. But this guy's bigger. I mean, he's got some
Mhm.
legit size to him. He's like sort of in between Cordell Patterson and Tariq Cohen, right?
Mhm.
But you watch his highlights and he is running through guys. He's running through tackles. It's not just, he's not quite as shifty, obviously, as a Tariq Cohen. I don't know that his route running ability is quite as good, but once he gets the football, he's not only able to use his speed, but he can use that size too to break tackles.
He can, and that's the thing. Like, he's not gonna dice up guys. Like, he's almost like when he has that football in his hands, like he can make people miss. But oftentimes he's like that semi truck where he's just gonna run some people over. And I think Poles mentioned it last night about when Tyreek Hill came to the Chiefs, and like he didn't have that much of a route treat, but he worked on it, honed in that craft, and that's how he's been able to blossom to the player that we see now in the NFL, that superstar in the league. And I'm not saying Jones is going to become to the same kind of pedigree of Tyreek, but he is someone that can still kind of raise the bar of what he can offer the Bears by continuing to work hard, and I believe he will do that. Refine his game, and his value in offense should only go up as time passes on. But he's someone that the Bears should be more inclined to run the screen game, and Byron Pringle can be a big part of that. Velus Jones Jr. can take that, take it and make it as well. A guy who can just catch an easy slant or a shallow cross and make a few guys miss and make a big play out of it. He's someone that I expect a lot of, not a lot, but a decent amount of looks dialed up for him, each and every week, just to give him a shot to make a big play happen. And he has the potential each and every time he has that football in his hands to score.
I agree with that, Will. And I see a comment here from Julian. Velus is slow. Man ran a 4.31. I don't know how much faster you want this guy to be. He definitely has some speed. And a lot of what these picks, especially on day 3 for the Bears, and they all have this special teams component like a Velus Jones Jr. What Ryan Poles was kind of saying today in his presser was that it was a big component for them when they were kind of valuing picks. And a big reason is like the guys that have special team that can contribute on special teams are also dressing on game day. So you can evaluate these guys as opposed to maybe players that are more, they just don't have that type of versatility being on special teams. But Velus, in terms of being not only a dynamic deep threat, does give you that kick return dynamic as well. So another pick where you're getting a lot of assets out of a particular player. So something that the Bears need to do, right? Add some more weapons around Justin Fields and end up being the one wide receiver that they actually drafted.
Yeah, and I know they have some undrafted guys, and you guys will talk about that Monday, and there's no reason to do that now, but I just want to at least mention, if someone doesn't know that, like, they are addressing the position as we speak. But, Velus Jones is someone that I did my homework on, and I really like his game and the physicality he plays with at the receiver position. And, just hearing him talk a little bit as well during his press conference about his grandpa being in the military, like a Marine, and like taught him how to really just take punishment. Honestly, I don't think those are the exact words, but that's how I'm going to take it. Like, take punishment, absorb contact, and just, I think he said like be a man. And so for me, that's exciting to hear that kind of attitude. And he is someone that I know the age is a thing. And Adam, we talked about that last night, but if they can have a dude for 4 years and then end up like he's 29 and you want to keep him around for another 2 to 3 year deal, that's still great. Like, that's 7 years down the road. I think the Bears are worried about, 2022, 2023, 2024. We'll get to that next chapter, but he's a guy that can contribute now in this era, and Justin Fields' rookie contract, that window. And I appreciate that. And I expect him to really be, he's going to be a playmaker in a couple different phases. And we haven't even talked about that. He's a gunner. Like, he can go out there and make tackles and punt and coverage as well. So that's another element of his game that's a ton of value. Punt returner, kick returner, punt and gunner, and a gadget guy on offense. Debo's another name we mentioned yesterday. And it was interesting that we mentioned it with you, me, and Olin, Adam. And then Poles mentioned both Hill and, Debo in his press conference. So it made me feel good when I was driving home to listen to that. It gave me a little extra juice to make it all the way back home.
Yeah, I'm sure you needed that juice too.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to think of like what point you would have gotten to where you're just like, I can't do this anymore. Like, what part of I-65?
Lafayette, like, that's it. Like, when I get
that,
yeah.
When you get past the windmills and you're just like, come on.
It's like, I know I have 2 more hours. Like, that's the halfway point for me, is Lafayette. And I waved to David Bell for you both, by the way.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it.
We tried. Yeah. You know, and then they lower the speed limit there in Lafayette for some reason, which makes no sense. And you're just like, come on, why do I got to slow down?
It's the curves. Like they just feel like you can't handle the curves at 70, but 65 is acceptable.
I want to get to Lafayette as fast as possible. I want the speed limit to go up.
I love how you say it though, Lafayette. Very fancy. I don't know if it's just like because like at least in Indiana, it's just like Lafayette. Like it's
Lafayette, West Lafayette.
We pronounce so much things wrong though. There's a town named Hobart, but it's actually supposed to be not pronounced Hobart. And it's just there's so many of them, and it's not. We're not going to talk about it in this show. We can take that offline, but it's interesting.
Well, you know, I like Indy for sporting events. The rest of the state, yeah.
Have you been to Bloomington much?
You know what? I went to Bloomington for that Northwestern Indiana game 2 years ago that the Hoosiers just blew them out. Was it 2 or 3 years ago now? It was a while ago now.
Was it the COVID year, like as like a reporter?
Yeah, but was that COVID year? I don't think that was COVID. I want to say that was 2019 because it had to be because I flew to Philadelphia the next day for a Bears-Eagles game, which also went very, very poorly. I think that was the game where they had like 7 yards offense or something in the first half. Maybe it was a quarter, but
sounds about right.
So anyway, that I was impressed with the atmosphere. That was the year Indiana was really good.
If it was the year we were really good.
It was the COVID year. It was the year they were starting to get good, I think.
Okay, there we go. Because I was going to say, the year we can play football, there's no one in the stands. And then once you put fans in, they forget how to play football. But it's a basketball school, or at least that's what I've been told.
Yeah, it's a basketball school. That's all right. Anyway,
yes,
I'm glad the point is I'm glad you're home safe. I don't know where I was going with that at that point, but we're going to move on to the next Bears draft pick, which this is where chaos started to ensue today because it was just Bears trade back, Bears trade back, Bears trade back. Are they ever going to make a pick? But it led to acquiring a ton of draft picks, and there was a couple interesting wrinkles in there with previous trades that were made because one of the trades, the first trade, I believe, was with the Chargers, and that 6th round pick the Bears acquired for next year, they traded back to the Chargers and get 2 7ths, which ended up being the last 2 picks of the draft that we'll get to coming up here. There was also the 5th rounder that they acquired for Anthony Miller, which I'm still stunned they got a 5th rounder from Houston for Anthony Miller. The Texans didn't even keep him. Well, they flipped that. They moved back that 5th rounder. They get a different 5th rounder and add a 6th rounder. So Anthony Miller turned into a 5th and 6th round pick. I guess you have to give credit to both Ryan Pace and Ryan Poles for that, even though the draft pick was a mistake and they did trade a future 2nd rounder when Ryan Pace made that move to get Anthony Miller. At least he recouped some draft capital, and it turned into 2 players for the Bears today. So you can at least say that. Anyway, after all the trades, the first pick made today was an offensive lineman, offensive tackle Braxton Jones from Southern Utah. Big player who was under-recruited. He grew up in Utah, got a preferred walk-on offer from Utah at the last minute, but ended up going to Southern Utah, spent a lot of time there, redshirted, needed to develop. This is a developmental pick. He's still got some work to do, guys, but, I watched some of his Senior Bowl film today from the practices, and it's not bad. And I have to imagine that Senior Bowl week and those practices probably had a lot to do with the Bears picking him. But this is a guy who's got traits that, you match up his traits with some other guys in this draft, and he's comparable to some of the first round picks, but he's got a long way to go before he's going to put all that together and turn that into good film, especially at the NFL level, as he makes a big jump up from the FCS level.
Yeah, like he's not the most athletic. If he was, he would have been regarded, higher in his draft class. But he has, functional athleticism where he's going to be able to execute what the Bears are looking for, in this outside zone scheme. He has, as you and I talked about earlier, Adam, in our instant analysis, like that prototypical size that you're looking for at the position. And he's just a little bit raw, and it's like the fundamentals. But what I heard Coach talk about And I know it's on defense, but I believe it kind of is for the entirety of this football team. Like, they trust this coaching staff to develop football players. And that's something that the previous regime could not do. They could not take these guys and develop them and make them better, in terms of like you draft a guy here, and grow him. I didn't see many players grow in Chicago over the past few years. It seems like people are almost kind of like getting limited just a little bit. So I like this pick a lot with all the upside, a really high ceiling. And he has a lot of, he has a high football IQ. You see it on film. You hear the scouts talk about it. And, I love the fact that, he's coming from the Sky Conference and he went to the Senior Bowl, and when he was out there, and like you said, Adam, like, he was holding his own a little bit. And I saw a quote from the Draft Network, and he's like, when I was out there and I did that, like, I can tell myself, like, hey, I actually belong here. And like, that's kind of cool for him to kind of have that moment. And now he has another moment of being drafted to the Chicago Bears. And now he's in a competition with Larry Borom or Tevin Jenkins. And, we'll shake it out as it comes to fruition, but let's see what he can do. But I love the pick.
Yeah, Braxton Jones, he came off as very genuine in his press conference. Honestly, just really nice. Like, someone asked him, like, do you have like a mean streak? Do you have to turn it on? And he's like, yes, I don't. He said, it's not the exact quote, but he's like, I just don't want to be a dick for no reason. So he's like, he does that on the football field. I'm like, okay, I like that. I like that, Brax. So he knows, again, when to turn it on. And like, he has, someone put in the comments here, the arm length. He's got 35 and 3/8 inch arms. Like, he can keep those offensive or the defensive edge players at bay with those arms, even if he doesn't have the best athleticism. He just needs to grow into it. But I think the Senior Bowl, and the Bears actually drafted a couple of players that participated in this Senior Bowl. That was huge for a lot of the evaluations that kind of went on at Hallis Hall and determining where these guys are at, where they value them, and what they kind of showed on a bigger stage from some of these players that didn't play against the best competition. So the Senior Bowl was big, and that definitely applies for Braxton Jones.
And, I mentioned, the Bears believe in their coaching staff. And I mentioned this earlier, but I want to make sure I say it in the podcast too. Like, he's a guy that is self-admittedly coachable. Like, he has that growth mindset and wants to be coached up. And if you have a good coaching staff, a good room of teachers, and someone that's eager to learn and has, all of those raw tools, like, he is just a marble, and let's go chisel away and let's see what we can make. It's a great kind of blend of, both sides coming together there.
Well, I made the case a lot the last few days leading up to the draft about how the Bears had to get some guys in here that can get on the field early. But that was with 6 draft picks in mind, So if you're going to basically double that, then you can afford to draft some guys in there that have higher upsides, that are traits picks. And they may bust out. It may not work. But you can take those swings. And if you are going to do that, I love the approach the Bears took, which is, they got those guys early that they know they can get out on the field. Like, the picks last night on Friday were the guys that are going to play early on. And then today you kind of a mix. You have some guys that will get, I don't want to blow them all here, but we're like a Treston Ebner, the running back from Baylor, who can contribute on special teams pretty early on, somebody like that. And then you have a couple guys here, their first 2 picks in the 5th round, that are more traits guys. Like, I don't know if Braxton Jones necessarily makes the 53 to start the season. Like, he may need some time on the practice squad. Of course, being a 5th round pick, I don't know if you can make that work, because he'd have to clear waivers. Well, that'll be a conversation maybe we have in August. But the point is, like, you have some time to develop him a little bit. The next pick that we'll get to here as well, at 174 in the 5th round, Dominique Robinson, who was a wide receiver at Miami, Ohio, before becoming a defensive end. And that was a 4-down front that Miami, Ohio ran. He's huge. What a big wide receiver he must have been at 6'5", 253. Yeah. They turn him into a defensive end, which is sometimes you see that transition happen between tight ends and defensive ends, but to go from wide receiver, and you just put on the film, and he is explosive. Like, he gets off the line. He's got crazy athletic traits. Ryan Poles talked tonight about grading the flashes. He got some advice. He didn't say who it was from, but he had some mentor that told him, grade the flashes. You see the length, the explosiveness, and the bend for him. Again, though, he's raw. He's barely been doing this on the defensive side of the football, but you give him some time, and these are back-to-back picks in the 5th round of Braxton Jones and Dominique Robinson, who could pay off long-term. They could bust out, but with 11 picks, you could afford to take those gambles.
You really can. And, I'll toot my own horn one more time because this is someone else that I mocked to the Bears in the same mock draft as Velus Jones. So obviously someone in the scouting department is a member of allchgo.com and reading these articles.
Yeah, but see, what you don't realize is every time you do that, the guys at DNVR are going to make you take a Malort shot. I don't know that you want to be taking credit for this stuff.
But I don't have it here unless they're going to fly here and bust through my door and, force it down my throat. I feel okay at this moment. But it could happen later on.
I purposely got all of my mock draft wrong. Well, it was except the Jack Sanborn, because the Bears did sign him as UDFA later. So, I'll have to own that one. But otherwise, I knew what was coming. So I purposely got all the picks wrong so I didn't have to drink any Malort.
but no, Adam, you had a really good point. Like, they can be patient with a guy like Dominique Robinson because you have a Robert Quinn. They signed an Alquin Muhammad. You have Travis Gibson, who's another young up-and-comer. Jeremiah Tachu, someone that maybe he can play a defensive end. He did in the Chargers early on in his career. Let's see if they can kind of get him part of that rotation here again. And if so, that gives them some time. But Coach Eberflus talked about, like, he's kind of gushing over a guy like this, like, oh, we're going to coach him up. And he's done such a good job of that throughout his career, like having, not a household name to work with at defensive end, but really getting the most out of it. So after some time, he should be able to develop. And I saw in the chat like a bunch of times, like, freak, like he is an athletic freak. He has all the traits that you're looking for. Fluid mover in space, super athletic, explodes off the line, like you said, Adam. And I saw another comment that said, like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't, but there are like those flashes that is like, he looks like a natural fit at the position and he's just so new at it. And so that excites me. That get some hands on him, work with him for a while, let him know what he's doing. And if once he is like at that point, I think he can be really dangerous. And you traded away Khalil Mack. Why not give you a chance to develop someone that I'm not going to say is a Khalil Mack, but they can be a starting defensive end in this defense that gets you double-digit sacks every season down the line?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be on the coaching staff to develop him up in that way. He was someone that was on my radar at the Senior Bowl. He kind of just chiseled like a Greek god. I remember like saying that, like, that guy is ripped and he's going to go win this rep. And he actually ended up doing that. But yeah, he admitted in his press conference, like, he is really, really raw at the position. Like Adam was saying, he was a wide receiver. Before that, he was a dual threat college quarterback. So it's a guy that played on offense, then finally transitioned to the defense side. But he's been working on a repertoire, just gaining a repertoire of pass rush moves. He said he singled out Leonard Floyd as somebody like body type wise that he can kind of look at. Also mentioned guys like TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. I'm like, okay, those are, the elites of the elites, but it's good to have, you're looking up to the best of the best and try to see how you can mold certain things into your game. But yeah, it is a project. He knows that. And now it's going to be up to his coaching staff to take that raw talent and make it into something, and hopefully a contributor for this Bears defense. Maybe not this year, but at least in year 2.
I can see pass rush specialist year 1. Like Adam, I think you and I said earlier when we were just kind of talking about it, like just go get the quarterback.
I brought up Mark Anderson's name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the way he was used, it was, he wasn't really ready to be an every down defensive end, and he never really even became that. But they put him on the field in obvious pass rush situations, and his like sack to snap ratio as a rookie was just insane.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a role. I mean, he's definitely one of those guys that I just cannot wait to see when the pads go on in training camp. And he very well may just get like put on his ass right away. He's got to learn technique, but I guarantee he's also going to go blow by, Tevin Jenkins a couple times too, in some of those one-on-ones. So he's going to be a fun guy to watch in training camp. All right, getting to the next pick as we move into the 6th round, Zachary Thomas, offensive lineman from San Diego State, who was a tackle there, played left tackle there. I think most likely he will be moving to guard. But I don't know. Nick, help me out here. Did they rule anything out with him in his positional versatility when you talk to the scouts?
So now with the scouts, but I actually asked Zachary where he kind of sees himself playing, and he did play mostly started 12 games at left tackle, but the 2 seasons prior he played at right tackle as well. He said, I'm coming off a season at left tackle, so I probably have to say that's the position he sees himself at, but he's honestly felt like he can feel comfortable anywhere on the line. So I don't think there's been a determination yet on Zachary Thomas.
Yeah, first of all, I'm upset he shaved that beard because he didn't have that beard, on his call with reporters today.
It was nice.
So that's disappointing. I don't know if that hurt his draft stock at all, but he did fall to the Bears at 186. When I looked at him a little bit and did some homework on him, because admittedly was not on top of Zach Thomas, coming into today, and interested to hear what Olin Kreutz will have to say on Monday after he gets a chance to watch some film on him. But scheme fit,
yes.
Right? Like his movement skills, he tests off the charts when it comes to mobility. So it's obvious Ryan Poles here after first couple offensive line picks has a type, and that mobility, the outside zone that Olin's been talking so much about, this is somebody who fits that. So whether it's playing guard or tackle, the ability to move and get outside is a big factor here. And and I also liked his demeanor as he was talking to you guys as I watched back some of those press conferences today. So interesting pick for the Bears. Again, we're into the 6th round now, guys.
Yeah.
Expectations need to be lowered a little bit, but you just keep trying to take swings there because this conversation came up on Twitter a little bit as the day was unfolding. Oh, you get all these picks. What does that mean? Because it's just a crapshoot. Well, the more darts you can have, the more likely you're going to hit a bullseye eventually. And the Bears have had a knack in recent years. I put the list out on Twitter earlier. There's a long list from 2014, averaging actually like over a player a year that they've hit on from the 5th round on. So there's a decent chance that 1 or 2 of these guys is going to become a significant starter for you.
100%. And like you said, scheme fit. He's definitely more athletic than I would say he's like strong up front at the point of attack. But in terms of, some other variables, because I think they play heavily as well, as the Bears have mentioned, like that character and that makeup. I know he was voted the team captain last year at San Diego State. So you're looking at another leader here or someone that at least is looked up to in a locker room. So, you have that maturity level. And then in terms of like that resiliency, he did tear his ACL in 2018 in a spring practice. And when he was healthy, he was actually a backup left tackle, is kind of how he was designated back. But he did kind of earn his way back up to the starting lineup. So again, I think that shows the grit and the willingness to kind of work through and fight through some of those difficult times throughout his career, his life, and get back on track. And here he is in the NFL. So that is another just element that I think should be mentioned here when it comes to Zachary Thomas.
And his brother got drafted too. So he was actually waiting because his brother Cameron Thomas, who plays defensive end at San Diego State, he got drafted the day before to the Cardinals. And so we were asking him, so what was your process? Like, what were you doing? Like, I was on the couch all day just waiting to get drafted. So he had all these boxes full of all the team gear. And he's like, hey, I just happened to pull out the Bears one, get drafted. So both the brothers are now in the NFL, which is definitely a cool story.
Yeah, that was kind of fun hearing him talk about that. What a weekend for the Thomas family out of Carlsbad, California.
And then the only other thing was I spent 5 minutes looking up information on Zach Tom. And apparently there's 2 offensive linemen with Zachary Thomas and Zach Tom. And I was like, wait a minute. This school's different. Let's not even worry about this guy. Let's start all over.
I think Zach Tom went to the Packers.
That's so strange.
Of course he did.
It's either the Packers or the Broncos because his name came up today as I was looking through. Let's see here. Yep, Zach Tom, round 4 out of Wake Forest to the Green Bay Packers.
Wow.
Of course.
No. I was like, wait a minute. Like this, is this the same guy? No. I looked at the photo and everything. Like, this is strange. Like, who would have thought?
Well, if his name's Zach Tom and the Bears drafted Zachary Thomas, then Zach Tom's got to be half the player that Zachary Thomas.
That's right. I like the way you think.
It's just math. That's all it is there. All right, let's move on to the 6th round. Few more picks to get through. The Bears ended up with 3 picks in the 6th round. So we move on to 203. And Ryan Poles said this running back class was deep. Treston Ebner ends up being the pick. We kind of all felt like he was going to take a running back at some point. Here he is, 5'11", 206 out of Baylor. Guys, turn down the tape today after they made this pick. This dude's good. He's was not necessarily the fastest running back out there, but you watch the film and he just looks like a bigger running back. He's got some size to him. Return ability is very, very good. 3 kick return touchdowns in his career at Baylor. So he's going to help out there. And he has special teams ability just beyond being a returner too. So he's a guy. Oh, and where he was actually especially couple things on Ebner. One, Ryan Poles told us, comes from that outside zone scheme at Baylor. So again, scheme fit right away off the bat. And then Ebner mentioned how he catches the ball out of the backfield. You look at his film, he's almost like a hybrid, like running back, wide receiver type guy, to be honest with you.
He is.
Looking at the film.
He's in high school, he was an all-state receiver, and then in college, he transitioned to running back. So you see that, like those natural receiving abilities, like you said, on film throughout his collegiate career, 127 catches, over 1,500 yards, and 11 touchdowns coming out of the backfield as a receiver. And that's enticing because whenever he can be a mismatch for a linebacker just coming out of the backfield and running, because his route running is really good. So like he can get away from some guys and make some things happen. But I really like this pick too. Like you said, like running back was something that potentially could have happened if they got more picks. And here we are. He's like that change of pace, third down potential back, and he has good vision. And he's always looking for like that home run. Like you'll see him. Like, he'll be like eyes up, trying to make people miss and like fighting for every yard and looking for that extra space to make something special happen. And, even though he's not the fastest, he has really good bursts. Like once he hits the corner and plants that foot, like he can go, like he can fly. So all around, like this is this is a really interesting pick because you have, a guy like a Khalil Herbert. Well, you have Khalil Herbert, you have David Montgomery, and then they brought in that other kid too off of waivers, right? From Tennessee. If I'm not mistaken, a couple of months ago too. So yeah, you have a real crowded running back room, and David Montgomery is on the final year of that rookie contract. So this could be, some not 40 chest, but just chest in general.
Yeah, I really like the vision that he displays. Even like the highlight that the Bears posted on their main website on Twitter. It's like the guy just has a knack for looking at where his next opportunity to gain those yards after catch are going to be. And that's something that Velus Jones Jr. also does as well when he's in the open field. And obviously both of them having that return capability. I'm looking forward to seeing how that competition plays out in camp, like who's getting the kick return opportunities, because there's a couple of guys now on the Bears team as it stands that are definitely capable of, making the most out of that opportunity once they get in training camp.
If they only go with one, I can see it being, obviously, Velus Jones is really good at kickoff returns as well, but I can see Ebner being the kickoff guy and Velus being the punt returner. Like, because I think Velus Jones is second in the NCAA, averaging with punt returns over 15 yards per pop there. So perhaps like that's how they divvy the load, or maybe it just varies by week or time. Like if one guy's winded, screw it, we have another guy, throw him out there. Like it's not a bad position to be in whatsoever.
A couple things here. One of the things I'm noticing is we go through all these guys is durability. A lot of these guys do not miss a lot of time. And even, you brought up Zach Thomas tore his ACL. That was early on in his college career. And after that, he pretty much played. So he bounced back from that. When it comes to the return, the thing is like if Velus Jones Jr. really becomes like an important piece of the offense, like somebody they really need out there, then you can limit his exposure getting hurt.
Yep.
If you use somebody else as the returner. Like that was always why they didn't use Tariq Cohen more. And that's unfortunately where Tariq Cohen suffered his terrible injury that ended his Bears tenure. And man, I hope it's not his NFL career, because that was off a punt return where he had that knee injury. So it's nice to have a few options there. The one thing I also go back to is, we keep having this conversation about the lack of weapons for Justin Fields. Like if there's some way to work other players onto the field, Ebner also was a high school wide receiver, and you could see that in his pass catching ability. So, maybe there's some packages they can work him on the field too, where he's actually lining up as a receiver, similar to Tariq Cohen. Very interesting pick that late in the draft for the Bears. 4 picks later, they go offensive line again, and it was Doug Kramer, the center from Illinois, guy I've seen a lot of because it seems like he's been in college for 17 years, I think, at this point. But plenty of Northwestern Illinois games, I should say, with Doug Kramer. And he's an undersized center, but he's a grinder type. His film is certainly not perfect, but he's the type of guy that is going to work hard and could earn himself a couple contracts in the NFL just because of being able to back up and be somebody you can count on. Now, the one thing I will worry about a little bit here is the lack of positional versatility, because if you want to be the backup center on game day, you need to be able to also back up guard. And he's been strictly a center at Illinois. So that is one thing that I do worry about a little bit here. But very cool story. Hinsdale Central, local kid, grew up a Bears fan. Nick, you got a chance to talk to him after, he got selected. You could tell that meant a lot to him to be drafted by his hometown team.
Yeah, and he had all the jerseys growing up, Urlacher and guys like that. And then once he became an offensive lineman, he had our guy, Olin Kreutz's jersey, and he modeled his game after him, the physicality, the leadership, somebody looked up to when he finally became and knew he was going to be an offensive lineman. So, yeah, you could definitely tell that being a Chicago Bear, being able to stay in the same state, it means a lot to him. So you spoke to, this guy's going to be a grinder. Once he gets this opportunity to come to rookie minicamp next weekend, then you're going to see Doug Kramer, putting everything out there, because that's just who he is. And being undersized, like, you're going to see that physicality, that leadership that he hopefully wants to display. But it definitely means a lot to be a Chicago Bear.
I saw from Swanky 32 said that was one of his high school teammates, I believe is what I saw. And always loved talking Chicago Bears football. And obviously I can relate to that. So, that makes me happy to hear. And you guys talked about, how he is on the field. And I just want to mention, he was a finalist for the Campbell Trophy, which is that goes to the college football with the best player with the best combination of academics, community service, and on-field performance. It's also known as the academic Heisman. So he was a finalist for that award this season. At Illinois, he was someone that did handle all those signals and pre-snap responsibilities at the line of scrimmage, playing that center position. So he has a good understanding of just the game in general, scheme and making those calls up front. And then I did see when I was doing my homework on him that he's mentioned after his playing career is done, he wants to get into coaching already. He knows that. And that's really neat. I think that's a testament to his leadership, his love of the game of football, and his obviously his passion for the game too. So, all of those things could lead him to, like you said, Adam, someone that could be a grinder type in this league. And you see it on film. He has a high motor. He never gives up despite, some of those physical, perhaps limitations, and then he can overcome those with that work ethic. And I think that's what the Bears are hoping for by making this pick, that he can do exactly just that.
All right, 3 more players to get through here before we are out, and we call it a weekend. We go to the 7th round. 3 picks in the 7th round, starting with offensive lineman Jatir Carter out of Southern University. Here's my favorite thing about him. Do you guys know the name of his hometown?
No.
In Louisiana? White Castle. White Castle, Louisiana. I love this dude. Jatir Carter played left tackle exclusively at Southern. And definitely kind of another developmental project here a little bit, but he's a candidate to move inside to guard. I'm intrigued by him a little bit. Now, I did have to laugh, though, because I looked at Dave Brugler's draft guide, The Beast, and this is what he had to say about him. Overall, Carter might have a tough time matching up against outside speed in the NFL, but he uses his core strength and length to execute as both a pass and run blocker. He is a candidate to move inside to guard in the NFL, similar in ways to Dakota Dozier when he was coming out of Furman.
Oh,
Dakota Dozier on the Bears.
All comes full circle, you guys. Yeah, I actually asked the area scout that the Bears they made available to us after each pick, which was really cool getting to talk to them. Breck Akeley, like, where do you see a guy like this who is only 6'3" and played, like you said, exclusively at left tackle, playing in the NFL? He's like, yeah, his position, his body type, how he plays, inside guard position. It's like, okay, I think Will, you knew that coming in, and we just had to confirm that with the scout there. But that's where the Bears envision him kind of playing at. And look, the Bears still don't have that right guard position solidified. Not saying that Carter's going to be someone that goes in and plays, but there's at least competition there. And that's exactly what I think the Bears wanted to achieve with a lot of these later round draft picks, just bringing in guys to compete at positions.
yeah, I see from Goose, he's mentioned that like he looked good at the Senior Bowl, and he did. Like some of the practice film I was able to watch here, throughout the evening it was pretty good. Like he was able to, hang in there with some of those pass rushers. And what I noticed about him is that build, like even though he's 6'3", like he's really thick and like super strong. And I think those are two attributes that, are a little different than other linemen that the Bears have taken so far in this draft. So I like the complementary skill set to maybe give you something, a little bit different. And when you're running that outside zone scheme and you're on the back side of it, what he can do well is just seal off that defender, right? All you need to do is get one step and turn him. And he's so big, like he's just the wall. Like that's all you have to do is be that body and kind of pick him. And he's someone that can definitely wall him off. But he didn't look out of place at the Senior Bowl, and he did a good job against some of that top talent at the senior level. And for a seventh rounder, I've heard he has decent mechanics. It's just some of those athletic traits that can they coach him up? Can he get a little bit quicker, reaching the second level? And it's a project for sure. But again, taking chances, and that's why Ryan Poles moved back as many times as he did, and that's why he addressed offensive linemen with the majority of those picks that he was able to kind of recoup.
All right, let's move to the last two picks. These were they were back-to-back 254 and 255. I'm going to go ahead in a minute. The safety out of California is probably the guy I know the least amount about in this draft class, Elijah Hicks. He didn't even earn a draft profile in Dane Brugler's draft guide.
Yeah.
He is listed as one of the other guys to consider. But in there at 5'11", 200, I did see though that he had 4 forced fumbles. So he's, a guy who will take the ball away. That maybe stood out to Matt Eberflus and the staff in the pre-draft process. And he definitely gets the award for most entertaining social media video to go up after the draft, because he was all fired up. He used the word "turnt" multiple times to describe his feelings about getting drafted. So the video was hilarious. He's obviously an energetic guy. And he seemed to say that, like, that's how I play too, bring that energy. So on the list of players I can't wait to talk to next week when they get to Hallis Hall for rookie minicamp, he is maybe at the top of the list.
Absolutely. And even in his press conference there, Adam, like, he just came with the look, it's the end of the day. Everyone's kind of down in there. Boom. He just raised it right up in terms of the answers he was giving, the excitement he had in his voice. So Elijah Hicks, I have a feeling in rookie minicamp, Adam, we're going to hear him, like, just in the back end of the defense yelling or doing whatever he needs to do. But it's a guy that is around the football. There were 3 consecutive games that he had at Cal where he had an interception. You mentioned the fumbles that he had. He was a corner and transitioned to that safety spot, and you see those traits kind of carry over there. So somebody that I'm really intrigued to watch and see where Eberflus is going to just play him in this defense, because obviously you have Brisker opposite of Eddie Jackson, but I wonder maybe if he's in that hybrid role in that nickel position, being that he has that corner versatility. So it'll be interesting to see where the Bears actually kind of put him in this defense.
Yeah, and all the other players that they got throughout free agency, the secondary is crowded, and it's an excellent situation for the Bears to be in. But he was first team All Pac-12 this past season with the 72 tackles, 3 picks, and 4 forced fumbles. I think what kind of killed his draft stock was, I think he had a fracture that required surgery.
Okay, I was going to ask about, there has to be some type of injury, because there was no numbers on him from the combine or pro day or anything.
But I don't know what the fracture was on, and that's what I couldn't find either. It was just like fracture that required surgery. And I don't know if anyone can unleash the power of Google. I think Nick's on it based off of the look that he's given that side screen over there. That was something I couldn't get to here this evening, but I noticed that. So instead of going to the combine or the pro day or anything, like his agent had him working through some drills and was recording them and sending those videos to, different agents. And he said he got good feedback, obviously good feedback enough so from the Bears to go ahead and get drafted here. And I saw an article as well that he was mentioning, like, I didn't really expect to even be drafted. Like, I don't expect to be drafted, but if it ends up happening, like, that's great. But I'm going to find my way on the NFL roster one way, or the other. But yeah, he didn't have a draft profile on the Beast. He didn't have one at NFL.com, the Draft Network, like nothing. Like, it was very tough to find some info on this guy.
All right. Real quick, I want to mention before we get to our last pick, if you enjoy CHGO, one way to help us continue to grow is to download the PointsBet app. Use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content. And we got a lot of it this weekend from the draft. You'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. Any questions, email pointsbet@allchgo.com. And in case you missed it, online sign-up is available now in Illinois. Download the PointsBet app right now. Register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. What are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700. All right. Olin got his offensive lineman, and they made me happy with the last pick. And 255, they drafted a punter, guys. Trenton Gill out of North Carolina State. He's big, man. 6'4", 219 for a punter. Where's number 99? I mean, he's not the punt god, but, we'll just have to watch Buffalo Bills football with the punt god. How about the idea of that Buffalo wind behind him just booming the ball like 100 yards? I love it. I love it.
You can see the tricep on him too, man. He lifts. You can see. There you go, Trenton Gill. Honestly, guys, he sounded just happy to be drafted. When we were kind of listening to him, he didn't know. He's like, I wouldn't say that. I wasn't expecting it, and then he kind of said, well, he was. So I think he was just happy to be drafted, and obviously the Bears. Why they decided to do that is that they didn't want to get into a competition later on with other teams if they didn't decide to draft Trenton Gill. So they went ahead and made him the last pick of Ryan Poles' first draft.
And that's the benefit of trading back like he did to get all these other picks. So you can just say, screw it. I want this punter. I don't want to, get in a bidding war in the undrafted free agent market. Let's get him. Let's bring him in to compete. And it's one of those benefits of accumulating additional picks. But, overall, when you look at him, he has a decent leg. He's no punt god by any means, but I'm glad that the Bears are addressing this position too and not neglecting it. Honestly, like they're keeping, building competition in all of these positions. And I think that's very important. But yeah, going punter, I know makes you very happy, Adam. And, if you're happy and Olin's happy and Nick and I were the ones that can correctly guess some of these picks in the mocks and we're happy, like it's a great weekend for all of us.
Perfect draft that way. I mean, I guess that's what happens when you get 11 swings, right?
Yeah.
But I think tied for the most?
For a team in the draft?
Yeah.
Possible.
That's what I saw in the comments, and I can't verify it. But if that's the case, and we went from only having 6 picks to having tied for the most in the NFL, like, I thank you.
Ryan Poles.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to finish the show as we do many times, and we're going to kind of do rapid fire, but we have a ton of super chats to throw in here. So Bear Forever 14 says, did we draft the next Mike Brown, Charles Tillman, and Devin Hester in this draft? I think so. I think that's for sure what happened.
For sure.
A lot of those guys have a lot of the traits. Yeah, hopefully.
I do see the traits. I mean, the Brisker and Brown, you see it. Tillman and Gordon, yup. And then same thing with, Hester, and maybe Hester could be split between, a Velus as well as, the running back out of Baylor as well, Treston. So yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Of course, I was being sarcastic, and let me just be clear with Devin. There's never going to be another Devin Hester. There's just not going to be another Devin Hester. So sorry. So I don't think they drafted the next Devin Hester. But all right, Emiliano says the punter, best pick of the draft. Great.
Okay.
value. I do like the logic with the pick, which Ryan Poles said, which was just, you can get into a bidding war in undrafted free agency, or you could just take a guy. And I figured that's why they added those 2 picks at 254 and 255 from the Chargers. I mean, they were in the last 10 picks of the draft, and to add those, it just gives you that sort of security blanket that as you get closer to undrafted free agency at the end of the night, and you're going, oh, there's, this many guys. And by the way, the Bears had to sign a ton of undrafted free agents just to fill out their roster. You can at least secure 2 with your draft picks and just be like, we don't have to negotiate. We don't have to get in a bidding war. We're just going to go ahead and grab this guy. And Trenton Gill was one of those guys at this point in the draft. So makes sense. Ascending Dead says 20 UDFAs in the 2 hours after the draft. We've been doing the show, so I don't know if it's up to 20. I do know the last time I counted up the Bears roster, there was 59 on the roster. They drafted 11 players, which gets you to 70. And to get to 90, you would sign 20 guys. So that's just math right there.
Have fun on Monday.
More math.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Sean says, in polls we trust, very different approach. Which vet free agent wide receiver do we prioritize?
Well, we know who you're going to say.
Well, I don't. Are you going to say Jarvis Landry?
Well, you're going to say Jarvis Landry.
Oh, I don't know if I am or not. I don't know that that's necessarily the best fit, but.
Okay.
I don't even know who's available at this point. I have to go check. I have to recheck who's available and see, who the Bears can realistically bring in. But yeah, veteran wide receiver, I think, is a good idea for still a very young group.
I was just pointing out earlier today or whenever that was still available.
Okay. So, that was yesterday, but it does feel like today.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, all the days have run together now at this point. But he would be somebody that gives you a veteran presence in the locker room. It's going to catch a lot of footballs and get open. So I don't think he's the player he once was, but he's a volume wide receiver, and that could certainly help you at this point. Was that all of them? Maybe it was. We did do rapid fire through the super chats. Hey, thanks to everybody for tuning in all weekend long. I know I had a blast. Everybody worked very, very hard. And it's not just us. It's that you see on the camera. It's everybody behind the scenes at CHGO. We really do have an awesome team, including our producer, Lawrence, and Joey, and Steven, and Jake, and Kevin, and Casey doing social media. I mean, just a huge team of people that brought all the content throughout the weekend, and there's plenty to catch up on too. So there's one more super chat. This came up a lot in the comments. We should address it. Any shot we take a swing at Justin Ross. The fact that Justin Ross went undrafted and is still not signed, at least at the last point I saw, I think tells you that that neck surgery problem he had is just something teams are, I hope for his sake it's not the case, but I wonder if his career is just over.
Yeah.
So, but very talented kid, and it's unfortunate to see that. But sometimes that happens. Someone in the comments has brought up Johnny Knox's name. Yeah,
Johnny Knox. That happened on a kick return. So a guy that was important on offense that had to do kick return duties. That's another point you made earlier in this show.
I think that's the scariest injury I've seen in person at Soldier Field. Was that one. Just when that happened, that was tough to see. And Johnny Knox is a good dude. So,
yes.
All right. Again, thanks to everyone. We're getting out of here. We're going to enjoy the rest of the weekend. Probably still grind some more film, write some more content for you at allchgo.com. Hopefully sleep a little bit. Will needs a nap. Enjoy this Basil Hayden and get back to it tomorrow, I guess. And then we will see you Monday, 11 a.m., our normal time in studio. Olin Kreutz will be there. I can't wait to hear what he has to say about this run on lineman, that offensive lineman that they actually did go after today. Final thought from you guys. I'm going to ask you, what was your biggest surprise? Mine is that they did not draft a defensive lineman with any of those 11 picks.
Ooh, that's a really good one. I guess
and let me clarify, interior defensive
I know
line.
What you meant.
Because they did take Dominique Robinson, but that 3 technique or that 1 technique type player, that is still a need for them.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't double dip at receiver. I know they're going ham now in the undrafted class, but I really thought they would have taken 2.
I mean, I think it's just the one receiver. It's kind of building off of your point, Will, just because it was such a need, and every single Bears fan was like, George Pickens or nothing, and obviously they pass on him, pass on Alec Pierce, and they only get one wide receiver. So I thought that was surprising after the 3 days.
All right, guys, it's been fun. Enjoy your night. We're back Monday at 11 a.m. We will talk to you then.